right, we're live. Got to let it breathe while we get the Facebook groups in here. Make sure we're clicking on the right Facebook groups. Hope everybody's having a wonderful Friday night. Waiting on those check marks here. Got one, got two. Welcome in everyone to another episode of the Dev Valley Deep Divers. I am your host, Erick Trickel, and joining me as always is my wonderful, not so good looking co-host, Lance Sanderson. Lance, my man, how are you doing on this Friday night?
Not so good looking. That's an insult. You have to be rude right off the rip
Of
to
course.
start the show. Dude, man, I'm tired of your nonsense. I almost said something bad. No, I'm doing good. Tired today, but been out in the yard doing a whole bunch of yard work and whatnot, trying to make sure our trees are all good coming through the winter and everything. Like, we've been doing a lot of planting around here, but all of our trees they're flowering. They're starting to be in full bloom. Like, we've got a bunch of leaves everywhere. Doing good. It's been a long day at work today. I'm kind of tired, but I'm excited to be here. It's obviously a wonderful Friday evening. We're going to be talking some Denver Broncos football, talking the AFC West and how the Broncos compared against the AFC West rivals and how they did in the 2025 NFL draft. I'm excited to break it down for you guys.
Yeah, it's definitely it's going to be a fun topic. I mean, at this point, I've talked a lot about the Broncos draft class, right? I mean, we were on Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday afternoon, morning, evening, all that. And then I was on Monday morning. I was on Tuesday night with Carl, and then I was on yesterday morning with Nick because he had to miss on Wednesday. So it's been a lot of it. So I'm excited to dig into a different part of this, looking at the other teams' draft classes and seeing, how they kind of have an impact on the Broncos and what the Broncos may or may not have done to counter them. So I'm excited for this conversation here. But before we get into that, I want to say hello to some people here in the chat. We have MBLE Test Prep saying, I'm here to party. Definitely, and glad you can join us. We have Ernie Mays, go Broncos country only, go Bo Nix for 6. And we have Ernie Mays again coming in. Eric and Let's go Broncos country only, go Bo Nix for 6. We still the draft grade A. We have Todd Osador saying, any earthquakes this week? Todd, you're from Alaska. There's earthquakes all the time. But yeah, there's been a couple of them. None of them that have caught me off guard than the one on Saturday. Which, Lance, I don't know if you saw this, but Saturday at one point, I'm talking about earthquakes. And not 2 minutes, exactly 2 minutes to be honest with you. After I get done talking about earthquakes, I get hit with an earthquake that completely caught me off guard.
I didn't actually get a chance to see that. I remember you bringing it up, but I didn't know that it was like midstream, like while you were talking.
We were 3 hours, 49 minutes, and 9 seconds when we got done, when I switched over to asking Carl a question. And at 3 hours, 51 minutes, and 9 seconds, you can see the screen start shaking and my reaction to it. It wasn't a big earthquake. It was just really close by. And, it was a 4.3, 4.4, something like that. But it was really close to where I live, which kind of caught me off guard. But anyways, back to talking about Broncos. We've talked about a lot, getting to cover some other aspects of this. And I'm excited for that. And again, we have still David Young coming in saying, just on by to say hi, say have a great show. Kevin coming in saying, Bo knows. Thank you guys for joining us. And we have Dylan Von Ark sitting in the background saying, sup, Broncos country. Make sure you hit that like button on the way in, share on all platforms, and subscribe if you haven't already. And we have Paul coming in saying, MHH brings it all. We definitely do. You get the good-looking guys and me, and you get the not-so-good-looking guys and Lance and Nick and, everyone else except for me and Dylan. Dylan's a good-looking kid, too. But anyways,
best looking kid at MHH. Let's just be honest here.
Yeah, if we had to do a calendar, if we did an MHH calendar, he would be January through December.
Pretty much, yeah. Yep. And even on the days too, like you could put pictures of Dylan on the days.
Little pictures of Dylan on there. But anyways, Lance, it's been a week. Before we dive into this conversation here, it's been a week. What are your thoughts on the Broncos draft class? Have you grown to love it more? Have you come to have more concerns about it? Where are you standing after basically a week?
So when we were live on the stream on Saturday afternoon, I obviously had to work, couldn't be there the entire day Saturday afternoon. But when I got back onto the stream, after being, able to listen to some information, be able to process things a little bit more, the more that I thought about this class, especially in the first 4 rounds, the more I started to grow to love it even more. I gave it a B- grade on the live draft show. I'm about at a B+ right now. And a big reason why is because the Broncos, again, they, like I said on the live draft show, they stuck to their board. They identified players that they wanted. They identified players that fit their culture. They identified players that fit their schemes. They identified just the players that they wanted to have to just continue to fill out this roster in the best way possible. And they landed on multiple different needs, whether it's Jahdae Barron at number 20 overall, whether it's RJ Harvey in the second round, whether it's Pat Bryant. They went out, they added a guy that can be a versatile cornerback that can play on the boundary. He can play in the slot, can play at the safety. That's something that I've been bringing up multiple different times. We need some more versatility in the secondary. They landed on a guy at the running back position that is an explosive playmaker. I mean, we're talking the second most explosive plays in the last 2 seasons of any running back not named Ashton Genty in all of college football. They land on a high quality, reliable possession receiver that could potentially be wide receiver 2 for you this year, or maybe even next year, but also as a Cortland Sutton replacement going down the future after the next couple of seasons. They hit on a special teams player, Quandarius Robinson, an extra edge defender, and that same player, a guy that Nick Saban said he's one of the best special teams players he's ever had is the best special teams player he's ever had the privilege of coaching. You land a punter, whatever, we can go round and round on that. You land a high upside guy in Caleb Lohner at tight end in the 7th round, made multiple different trades, moved up and down the draft board a couple of different times. The more you think about this class and the more you break it down, the more you dissect it, it actually comes out to be a really, really quality class. And like B+, A, right around that area, I'm here for it.
Yeah, we have Michael Ronquillo come in and say, "Good evening, Eric and Lance on the Death Valley Deep Divers. Go Bo Broncos." Thank you, Michael, for joining us and always being here in every single night, every single show. And we have Mr. Roush05 saying, "All AFC West got better. Coach targeted specific players that will make our team better than all those splash names that the consensus board had higher." Well, Mr. Roush, that is something that that's plays into the conversation, because I'm going to reference the consensus board a lot and talk about where these players went, because I went through and compiled it about where they went, where every player went, and every single draft pick went compared to where they were on the consensus board. And it may surprise you, the results of it, to an extent. So I'm looking forward to it, getting into that conversation. And Paul coming in, I'm looking for fit prospects in 2026. Poor Eric, I'll bother him more. Thank you, Paul, for jumping in. But this whole conversation is going to be about the DraftKings that we have in the AFC West. Who are the DraftKings? But before we get to that, speaking of DraftKings, Lance.
Yeah, guys, do you ever watch sports and find yourself wishing there was a way to get into the game? Let's go. With Underdog, there's finally
Wrong read.
I got the wrong one. I'm sorry. Let's try this again. Guys, the great rewards hunt is on, so join the adventure with DraftKings Casino. For fun seekers, follow the trail to huge jackpots, 3 weekly bonuses, and exclusive games. But the excitement is only getting started, because new players sign up with the code MileHighPod and wager a minimum of $5 can receive 500 casino spins on a featured game. Only the most rewarding place to play, DraftKings Casino. Again, that's code MileHighPod.
That's right. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling, 888-789-7777, or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. 21 plus, physically present in Michigan, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, West Virginia only. Void in Connecticut and Ontario. Eligibility restrictions apply. New customers only. Non-withdrawable casino spins valid for feature games only and expire in 160 hours. See terms at casino.draftkings.com/promos. Ends on May 4th, 2025 at 11:59 p.m. Eastern Time. And thank you, DraftKings, for that sponsorship. Now, getting into this, first off, we have here, I thought there was somebody from here, Paul saying rewind Sanderson. Yeah, I do find it funny that, DraftKings and you go on Underdogs. You ruined my setup perfectly. You ruined the perfect segue,
Dude,
man.
I'm sorry. I pulled it like I heard you say the code word, like let's go, and I pulled up the reads list and I started reading. Okay, my bad. I'm sorry, DraftKings. Thank you for sponsoring the show this evening. We definitely appreciate you for the support.
And Todd Osador coming in saying Chargers got better and Raiders improved a ton. I question the second bit of that. So, Lance, I'm going to point it to you. Where do we want to go? Do we want to start with the Chiefs? Do we want to work from the top bottom, or do we want to go bottom to top when we're talking about the AFC West?
So let's address the second point of this comment here with the Las Vegas Raiders.
Well, we're going to get to that in this conversation. So that's why I'm asking. Do you want to start with the Chiefs, or do you want to just start at the bottom with the Raiders and just jump right into it?
Let's start with the Raiders and go bottom up. I think that's probably the best way of going about this, because I do think that the Raiders did improve, but not the most out of any draft class in the AFC West this season. And I like a lot of what the Raiders did, to tell you the truth. Obviously, you get Ashton Jeanty first, you get Jack Besh in the second round. Go ahead.
Let me read off what they did, and then we'll get into it. All right. Okay. Ashton Jeanty, he went 6th overall. They took Jack Besh, 58th overall. Darian Porter at 68 overall. Caleb Rogers at 98. Charles Grant at 99. Dante Thornton at 108. Tonka Hemingway at 135. JJ Pegues at 180. Tommy Mello at 213. Cam Miller at 215. And Cody Lindenberg at 222 overall. They definitely got a lot of splash names there. But Lance, I'm going to tell you something. Only 3 of their picks weren't reaches against the consensus board.
And that makes sense. It does make a lot of sense. Obviously, Ashton Jeanty being the I had him as number 3 overall on my big board this year. An absolute blue chip talent here. Jack Besh, another player that I liked out of TCU, a guy that can work in the slot, can work on the boundary. He's a good route runner. Like this guy knows how to get open. Darian Porter, this is probably right about the range, maybe a little bit of a reach, at least according to the consensus board. I don't have that pulled up right now, but very talented, very raw, but a lot of tools to work with. He's got length, he's got physicality, he's got speed, he's got pretty much everything you want for a Patrick Graham style of defense. I didn't get to see Caleb Rogers as much, so I'm not going to speak on him, but Charles Grant is a player that I really liked out of William & Mary, a very talented and athletic offensive tackle playing on the left side, probably sliding to the guard at the NFL level. Then my favorite pick, I'm not going to get all the way deep in the woods here, my favorite pick that kind of ties this draft class together, Dante Thornton, wide receiver out of Tennessee. This kid is big, he's incredibly fast, and he's very talented at the catch point in terms of going up and catching the football. Like when you combine Ashton Jeanty, when you combine that with Jack Besh, you combine that with Dante Thornton, and then you also have Brock Bowers working over the middle of the field, this offense got a lot more explosive in multiple different ways. And that's where I think the biggest improvement was for this Raiders team.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to argue that they didn't improve. Obviously, they did. But here's the thing. Ashton Jeanty, great running back, no doubt about it. But the Raiders had one of the worst infrastructure for a running game last season, and they didn't really do much to improve it.
Yep.
Jack Besh, who, as you can see, so if you're looking on the screen here, you have the left number, which is where they went. The middle number is where they, where they were at on the consensus board. They're ranking on there. And so that third number is, positive means that that's how far they fell. Minus means that's how far they were a reach. So Ashton Jeanty was 6th on the board, went 6th overall, 0. Jack Besh was rated 68th on the consensus board, went 58th. That was a reach by 10, so on and so forth there, just to explain what we're looking at here on the screen to an extent. So, but anyways, poor infrastructure, and they got, Ashton Jeanty there to help the running game. Pete Carroll, he's going to help it out. So I still have a lot of concerns there, especially in the middle of that offensive line. They have about 4 or 5 players competing, and Caleb Rogers is adding to that competition. Charles Grant, he's going to be competing at right tackle. So they made moves to help the infrastructure with 2 rookies, but both rookies have to win that job.
Mm-hmm.
So it's very questionable there. Dante Thornton, to me, was a big reach that fits what they need. So I don't want to slam him too much for that. There are some questions there, and he kind of fits a mold that Pete Carroll likes. Tonka Hemingway, I'm a big fan of his player, but I will say that this was a reach for him, for what he is, for how raw he is, for how reckless of a player he is. Like, you can make it work, sure, but it's going to be a little bit rough. JJ Pegues, he went right around where I was expecting him. He went about 31 spots after the consensus board had him, as you can see. And it's not surprising. He's a big nose tackle that has a lot to grow as a defensive lineman, still learning the position. He was used as a wildcat quarterback, was a tight end when he entered Auburn years ago with Bo Nix. Tommy Mello, he's an interesting one. He's, kind of this weapon, Julian Edelman type is what's being said. Then Cam Miller, that's just kind of a throwaway pick, in my opinion, at quarterback for a depth spot. And for me, that's the biggest thing, is they were a team that really needed a quarterback, and this wasn't a quarterback class. Even with Geno Smith, they need somebody behind him, and they didn't go get that. I like Cody Lindenberg. I liked him a little bit more than here. I think he was a steal, I guess, meaning that I had him higher than where he went. But so overall, I like what they did. Darian Porter, he's another very raw defensive back, has still completely learned the game. So it's a lot of high risk, potentially high reward players here of guys that are having to make massive, changes to it or massive growth. Porter, very raw. Tommy Mello, very raw. JJ Pegues, very raw. Tonka Hemingway, very raw. Dante Thornton, very raw as a route runner. Cody Lindenberg, Jack Besh, Ashton Genty, Caleb Rogers. Those are some of the safer prospects that they had. Now, Lance, out of the all 32 teams, in terms of who reached the most, you look at this board and you can see that they reached by a total of 950 spaces.
Yep.
Where do you think that would rank in terms of all 32 teams?
It's got to be in the bottom 4. I'd probably last.
They are 31st.
Yeah. Okay. So right around there. And well, I understand, sticking to your board, and Mike Mayock and John Gruden did such a great job of drafting, and that's a throwaway joke that Eric and I get as an inside joke from the group chat. But these guys stuck to their board. They banked on a lot of raw players with a lot of upside. And that's the big thing. Darian Porter, this kid, with athletic as he is, with the size and the tools that he brings, I think there's a lot of really, really high upside. And when you put him in a Patrick Graham defense that likes to play a lot of off zone, it makes a lot of sense. He's a good scheme fit. With Tonka Hemingway, this kid plays like a Tonka truck. He's a wrecker on the interior. He likes to just go forward. There's not a lot of refinement to his game. He's a guy that you can line up from 2-eye to 4-eye, maybe somewhere around. Or no, am I thinking the wrong player here?
You're thinking of the wrong player. He is strictly a 4-eye 5 technique guy.
Okay,
he doesn't have the strength to hold up inside.
I thought he could play a little bit more towards the inside. But anyways, a 4-eye guy, 3-4-eye 5 technique, something like that. A guy that's just going to try to push the pocket, but he's not refined. He doesn't have the hand placement. He's just I'm going to go and body you and try to push you backwards. There's not a lot of disengagement in the running game. So for me, I get it. JJ Pegues, this is another player. He's going to be a nose tackle, a guy that can play the 0-1-2 technique. He's going to be a guy that can drop his butt down and just be an anchor in the running game. But there's not a lot of pass rush upside. They got a lot of solid players with a fairly decent floor, but a ridiculous amount of upside. If they all take to this coaching staff, that's the big thing here is they've got upside in pretty much every single pick that they took. It's just, where do they sit right now coming into the NFL? And that's with a head coach in Pete Carroll, who I like a lot, at 77 years old or 95 years old or however old he is. How long is he going to be able to get his hands on these guys to develop them into the potential that they actually have?
And that's kind of thing. Before I get to that, Lance, I just got to say, I just realized that we are basically matching with our shirt. Yeah. It is really throwing me off. But anyways, that's the thing is they got some players with a high floor, and they got a lot of players with a low floor and high ceiling. If they hit on all those raw players, this could be an outstanding draft class. And Ernie's saying, I thought this was a Broncos podcast. 31 other teams don't matter. It is a Broncos podcast, but they do matter, especially those in the division. And we're going to get to the Broncos aspect of it here. Now, the big issue that is concerning when it comes to the Broncos with the Raiders draft class is, what did the Broncos do to stop and counter what they did? When you see Ashton Genty, they didn't really do a whole lot there. Savion Jones, he helps bring that juice as a pass rusher, but he's not going to help much as, a run defender early on. I mean, he can help some, I don't want to say that, but he's not this 2-gapping nose tackle that they've been looking for to really clog the middle of the lane, right? So they didn't do a whole lot to stop Ashton Genty. But Jack Besh, well, hey, with Jack Besh, Brock Bowers, who they do bring a lot of similar stuff to the passing game, but there is enough variance that you can get some different out of them. Jahdae Barron is a great pick to counter that. Darian Porter, well, he's still raw. He's a guy that he's not going to, if he makes an impact this year, it's because of injuries, I think. So it's going to be more next year and the year on. Well, the Broncos already had a lot of receivers and they got Pat Bryant. That's a counter there. Dante Thornton, again, you boosted your defensive back room, your secondary, and then you get to the offensive line. Well, Denver's pass rush is already pretty highly up there, and then they add Savion Jones. So the Broncos actually, I think they matched up well when it comes to the Raiders in terms of draft class, except for not getting that big 2-gapping nose tackle to help counter Ashton Genty.
No, I'm with you on that. But the thing here is you don't get the two gapping nose tackle, and that sucks. But you did bring back DJ Jones, who is a decent quality run defender. I know you're lower on him than most other people, but at the same time, this is a guy that can still come in at 3 years, $13 million.
He's a 1.5 gap nose tackle.
Yeah,
and he does it well.
And that's fine. He's not a guy that's going to just drop his anchor in the ground and stand up a center and maybe a guard and take on double teams. He's more of a penetrator than that because of 1.5 gap. But at the same time, this is a guy that can still at least get it done. You're hoping for Malcolm Roach to take another step forward as a nose tackle there as well. Both of those guys, well, actually, Malcolm Roach is on the last year of his deal, but you got those guys at least for this upcoming season. You missed on going and getting a guy like that, or a guy like Cameron Jackson from Florida, who I really liked a lot as an interior run stuffing nose tackle, a guy like that. But you add to the pass rush, you add to the secondary. My big question with Jahdae Barron here, I love the pick, I love the fit, I love what they're trying to do there. What linebacker did you bring in? You brought in Dre Greenlaw, who has a hamstring injury going on right now that he's going to miss at least until training camp, which that's not necessarily a big deal. But Alex Singleton is a big question mark coming off of a torn ACL. You've got guys that can work laterally over the middle of the field in Jack Besh and in Brock Bowers. One guy's not going to fix that entire situation. And we don't know what Dre Greenlaw is coming off of a torn Achilles. So, and you've got, again, Alex Singleton coming off the torn ACL. That can be a problem here. Barron can cover one guy. You got Riley Moss that can step in. Surtain obviously does what he does on the one side of the field, locking down everything there. My thing here is, though, you've got a big time need still at the back end of the secondary, covering the deep third of the field. And with a guy like Dante Thornton that can go out there and stretch the field vertically with 4.29 speed at a 6'4" frame with 33.5-inch arms, this player here can cause you a lot of problems, taking the top off this defense and then opening up things over the middle of the field for Besh and Bowers to work with.
Yeah. I get a lot of that with the whole linebacker thing. I question how much Alex Singleton's actually going to see the field this year. Not the fact that they're going to put somebody over him, but I don't think that we're going to see a lot of two linebacker sets. I'm fully expecting 5-1-5 for our defensive formations, with Dre Greenlaw being that middle guy. But then with Dante Thornton to counter that is Denver's done well shutting down those vertical shots last year with the pieces they had, right?
Well, and
one of their bigger,
too.
With
the pass rush too, adding in the pass rush, getting after the quarterback. It's hard to get the ball down deep when you have less than 2.5 seconds to throw the football.
And one of Geno Smith's big things is that he likes to get the ball out quickly. He's one of those guys that really does. So I get where you're coming from with the concern there, but I'm not sure that, Dante Thornton's going to see the field a whole lot. I would expect him to see the field in a similar situation as Troy Franklin, right? They're very similar players with very similar issues. Dante Thornton doesn't have the best ball tracking ability, doesn't have the best hands over the shoulder. So even if he does challenge Jeep, well, you still have to worry about him securing the ball. So to be point here, and just to be clear here, when we talk about reaches and steals and all that stuff, it is exclusively to the consensus board. And I want to be very clear here about this. The consensus board is often wrong. And going back to the earliest data that I have of this, and I can pull it up, it's the similar board as this. The year 2022, the Denver Broncos were I think the third worst draft in terms of reaching for players against the consensus board. I would argue now that they had the best class in the AFC West and a top 10 class in the NFL overall. Just because of those reaches panned out. So even though it's a reach against the consensus board now, doesn't mean it's going to be in 3 years come. And just because it's a steal right now, doesn't mean it's not. And there's also an interesting study there that players who are reaches actually garner more money on their second contracts than players who are steals, who fall by a margin. So maybe reaching for players isn't that bad. Now we're going to move on to the Chargers here. Well, before we move on to Chargers, real quick, Raiders, blind rank them. 1, 2, 3, 4. Where would you put them?
Probably 3. Quite honestly, I'm not necessarily a huge fan of this Chargers class. And we're going to get into that here in a second. I think the Chiefs probably had the best draft class. The Broncos with the second best draft class. The Raiders at 3, and then the Chargers at 4. Not to spoil the episode, but that's probably what I'm going to go with in this exercise.
Just blind ranking. Just Raiders at 3. All right. Raiders at 3. Now we have the Chargers, who they stayed at 22 overall and got Omarion Hampton, who was the consensus board's number 22 overall player. They took Trey Harris at 55, where he was 65 on the consensus board. Jamari Caldwell at 86 when he was 117th on the consensus board. Kyle Kennard 125 when he was 96. Keandre Lambert-Smith, they took him at 158 when he was 234. Oronda Gadsden II at 165 when he was 164. Branson Taylor at 199 when he was 345, expected to go undrafted against the consensus board. RJ Mickens at 214 when he was 150. And then Triquez Bridges at 256 when he was not even on the consensus board. So he was at, or barely on it. I think there was like 670 or 690 players on the consensus board. So barely on it. And with him being at 640. So real quick, there are a couple steals here. In Kyle Kennard, Oronda Gadsden with one pick later, and then RJ Mickens. And I got to say real quick, this is another class that has some potential here. Trey Harris, he's got a lot of potential. He was one of the few players who could really be an X in this class, out of this class. Jamari Caldwell, if they can clean up how he carries his weight, and which can help his balance issues, he can be a really good nose tackle. Kyle Kennard, not the most physically gifted athlete out there, but he is a really good technician. Keandre Lambert-Smith, he's a valuable weapon after the catch. Gadsden, receiving tight end only, working out a slot. Branson Taylor, he has a lot of tools to work with as a tackle. RJ Mickens, I'm not a fan of, but he's a versatile kind of tweener like defensive back linebacker. And then Triquez Bridges, to be blunt, I was surprised he got drafted. He was one of those guys that he's a fine college corner, but I'm not seeing it there with the NFL. So overall, Lance, what are your thoughts about this Chargers class?
So the first thing that stands out, obviously, we're going to go to number 22 overall with Omarion Hampton. And the way that this Chargers offense wants to run, a lot of power. We're going to line up 6-7 guys up on the line of scrimmage, and we're just going to play bully ball. And you've got a guy that is a fairly explosive player, but a guy that has some really good contact balance. And that makes a lot of sense running in a power scheme where the gaps are not quite as wide open. You don't necessarily need to work with a lot of vision. It's run through the B gap, run behind your guard, and then make your cut and then go. It's not a very vision heavy centric kind of an offense. So this makes a lot of sense to me. I like this pick, especially given the fact that they also brought in Najee Harris, a similar player in terms of what they bring as a runner, not as a receiver. I think Omarion Hampton's a lot better as a receiver than Najee Harris is. But you add a 1-2 punch to this offense featuring Justin Herbert and obviously the deep shot passing game off of the play action. This makes a lot of sense. Then you bring in a guy to end what's his name? Johnson, the wide receiver. Dang it, what's his first name?
Johnson?
Yes, Quinton Johnson. Thank you. From TCU. Trey Harris, a vertical threat, a guy that's a big body, a guy that can play that true X receiver. He's a different receiver than Quinton Johnson is, but at the same time, that ends this conversation. Jamari Caldwell, to add a run stuffer to the interior of that defensive line that absolutely needs to have a nose tackle with run stuffing ability after they lose Poona Ford to free agency. Like, I like a lot of what they did here. I don't know a handful of these names. I didn't get to watch Kyle Kennard or Lambert-Smith. Oronda Gadsden is a versatile tight end. You can throw him out as a big slot receiver here, adds to the passing game. But if you're just going to tie into exactly what this team wants to do, getting Omarion Hampton with their first selection at 22 overall, that's my favorite pick of this class without question.
Yeah, we have T. Fishers coming in saying, I disagree. I think Denver had the third or worst draft. Denver did great with the first 4 picks and trades, then fell off. Well, T. Fishers, I'm not going to say I agree or disagree with you just yet, but I hope you stick around. And when we get to that part of this conversation, that you'll be here and we can have some back and forth about it and hear a little bit more about your reason as to why, and maybe even try to change your opinion a little bit. But going back to this Chargers draft class here is looking at what the Chargers have on the defensive line. I like Jamari Caldwell. I could actually click over and show you this same kind of Google sheet with my board. Jamari Caldwell, I liked him, but he was a little bit more of a reach for me than he was here. I had him about 20 spots lower than where the consensus board had him. I like Trey Harris a little bit more. Kyle Kennard, I had him at 125. He went 125. I really like Kyle Kennard. He's going to help with that rotation on the secondary after they lost Bosa. But when I look at the defensive line for the Chargers, Jamari Caldwell was an interesting pick because they have Tier Tart, who's a nose tackle. They have Otito Ogbanya, who is a fine pass rusher, and Deshaun Hand, who is a run stopper. They really don't have a lot of ability to get after the quarterback on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
So they're really selling to stop the run and hoping that the rotation of Tuliopoto, or mispronounce his name, and I apologize for that. Kyle Kennard, and then the guy who was with the Raiders out of Buffalo, Khalil Mack. They have them getting after the quarterback on the edge, which is great. Khalil Mack has absolutely killed Denver multiple times. He's so annoying, and I was hoping that he would leave Los Angeles so we didn't have to deal with him anymore. But they just don't have a lot on the inside. So Jamari Caldwell's interesting. Trey Harris, I think that's a good pick. But with them, especially with how their wide receiver room is, with having Ladd McConkey, they give him a potential weapon on the outside, which they desperately needed.
Mm-hmm.
Omarion Hampton and Najee Harris, that is definitely a bruising running back duo that they have.
Mm-hmm.
And just like with Ashton Jeanty, the Broncos didn't really get that pure nose tackle there to help, solve the issues there. Even if they are going to a 5-1-5 kind of look, they still could use that kind of guy. The rest of the guys are whatever picks to me, really. Keandre Lambert-Smith, I like him. He's a guy that you want to get the ball to in space. And so he is still a little bit of a threat, but Oronde Gadsden really has to come around and develop a lot as a receiving tight end. Branson Taylor, 2-3 years from now, we'll see if he's still with the team. RJ Mickens is another one. 2-3 years from now, we'll see if he's still with the team. And Triquiz Bridges, we'll still see if he's with the team here in a little bit, which you can say for almost every single pick that you get to this late. But it's not just, I'm not saying that just because of that. I'm saying it because of my thoughts and opinions on these players, with how raw they are, with what they all need to grow and develop with, and all that. So the Broncos didn't do a whole lot to come in and handle, the running aspect that these teams have upgraded with Omarion Hampton and Ashton Jeanty for the Raiders. But the passing aspect of it, they definitely did. And we have Amy Alice coming in and saying, good evening, Broncos. Good evening to you, Amy. Hope you're having a wonderful Friday night here. So, Lance, quickly, blind ranking. You have the Raiders at 3. Where are you putting the Chargers?
This draft goes at 4 for me. I like Omarion Hampton. I think they nailed the pick there. I like Trey Harris a lot. He brings that vertical aspect to the receiver room that kind of opens up the middle of the field. And if you get Oronde Gadsden working over the middle of the field as well, working horizontally sideline to sideline alongside Ladd McConkey, who is just a freak of a receiver. Like you have an opportunity here to kind of open up some stuff. But again, you talked about it with Jahdae Barron. You got a guy that can work against Ladd McConkey coming out of the slot. He has the sideline to sideline athleticism. He has the physicality. He has the length and the ball skills to be able to work against a guy like Ladd McConkey. So you kind of erase that aspect of it. You didn't take necessarily the player at safety to work the back end with Trey Harris working the deep routes, but you still have enough there. And to me, I think that even with Ladd McConkey, with Trey Harris, with Oronde Gadsden, and again, going back to Dre Greenlaw, working the middle of the field in coverage, you still work up pretty well against this Chargers offense outside of the interior running game, which is going to be a problem this season.
Yeah, so you put them 4th, right? The Chargers?
Say what?
You put the Chargers 4th in your blind ranking, right?
Yes. Yep. Chargers 4th.
All right. So just to be clear here, where they were in terms of against the consensus, in terms of that value, that negative 552 there, that's how many spots higher than what they drafted these players over. That brings them in at 26th, right? Mm-hmm. So against all 32 NFL teams. Now, going up to the Chiefs here, I want to go up without giving away what the Broncos did. All right, so we have the Kansas City Chiefs now, who they are, I will say, well, they are one of the few teams who were in the positive, which means that they got more value out of their picks against the consensus board, value, using that term loosely, meaning that they took guys who fell to them more than reaching for guys. Josh Simmons, they took him 32 overall. Consensus board had him 24th. Omar Norman Lott, he was one of the 3 guys that they reached on. They took him at 63 when he was at 79. Ashton Gilletti, they had him at 66 when the consensus board had him at 95. Noel Williams, who I absolutely loved, he is the best zone corner in the draft. We'll see how it pans out. He was 85. Consensus board had him at 102. Then we have Jalen Royals at 133 when he was at 82. Jeffrey Bossa 156, and Brashard Smith at 228 when the consensus board had him at 152. Now, I like this class a lot, but I think that the picks that are getting the most loved are the most overrated picks that the Chiefs made. Lance, I'm going to pass this off to you before I get into that aspect of it, but I just want to let's get that out there. The picks that are getting the most praise are the ones that I like the least with the Chiefs.
You broke up a little bit there, but for me, I think Josh Simmons, with him falling down that far, obviously the patellar tendon issue that he had, that pick for them and with what they need at left tackle, Kingsley Suamataia is not working out for them. They had to play Joe Tooney out there, moving him from left guard to the outside. It worked out for them. Obviously, they made it to the Super Bowl, but to get a true left tackle, a guy that works as a road grader in space, he's a quality pass protector. This is a big time steal for me. He was the top 15 player on my board. Omar Norman Lott, I think this is also a steal for me. I had him in the top 50. The pass rush upside and what he brings to that interior defensive line alongside Chris Jones, that makes a lot of sense there. Like they lost Treshaun Wharton in free agency, but to get a guy like that with some high upside, and while he may not be the best run defender, at least not on tape because he never really got the opportunity to do that. I think he only played 86 run defense snaps in the last 2 years. Like this kid brings a lot of upside as a pass rusher. And to me, the best pick that they made, Jalen Royals at 155. Like this kid works vertically. He works well over the middle of the field. He's a great route runner. He's reliable. He's got good size. He's just a perfect complement to what this Kansas City Chiefs offense needs to have over the middle of the field alongside Travis Kelce. You bring the speed with Xavier Worthy. Like that, I like this class a lot. Jeffrey Bassa, a player I liked for the Broncos as a coverage linebacker. You bring in Brashard Smith in the 7th round, a receiving running back that pairs perfectly with Isaiah Pacheco. This draft is really the most perfect complementary skill set to a lot of the players that they already have on this roster, which is a Super Bowl competitive roster. I love this class. I absolutely love this class.
So Brashard Smith, I'm going to start there. If you go back and you watch some of my comments about him in early March, end of February, January, you'll see me hype him up. He was one of those guys that I went back and watched. I don't get it with him. He's a great receiver, but this dude cannot be a running back. He's not a running back. He doesn't have the vision for it. He doesn't have the patience. He doesn't have the feel. None of that's there for him. He is a receiving back out of the backfield only. He's not a blocker. And then you add in the fact that he fumbles once every 50 times. Like, I'm not afraid of Brashard Smith on the Chiefs. Sure, his receiving ability is a nice counter with Isaiah Pacheco, but he's a tell. When he's out there on the field, you know what he's going to bring. He doesn't offer that rushing ability. He doesn't offer that blocking ability. Jeffrey Bassa, he's a cover linebacker who doesn't work downhill very well. Doesn't take on blocks very well. I do love Jalen Royals. He went a lot later than I was expecting. And that is one pick that really bothers me and really concerns me with it. Appears that we're having some connection issues. If you're in chat, am I breaking up a lot for you guys as well? Or is it just me breaking up for Lance? Just want to get that figured out here. So let us know. But anyways, Jalen Royals, Noel Williams, those are two of my favorite picks. I really like Ashton Gilletti. And it was a little early for me for him. He's one of those guys, I think that there's some limitations to him that, later third is there. Omar Norman Lott, you and I are on different worlds on him. He was a part-time player at Tennessee who played, you mentioned how he had 86 snaps for the last 2 years. He had 86 snaps in the last 2 seasons, not combined, in each of the last 2 seasons. He had 86 run defense snaps. But he only played 460 total snaps in the first place. Mm-hmm. He didn't play a whole lot. And when you watch it, it's obvious to see why. Yeah, there's upside there, but he is so raw from a technical standpoint. And then you look at his size, and he doesn't have the ideal size for the NFL. So I am really questioning what they saw in him to take him that early. I am not sure. It's not like a situation where with Ashton Gilletti, we know there was a team sitting at 70 that would have taken him had he been there. And we have this thing with RJ Harvey. Had Denver not taken him when they did, there was a team sitting at 70 that would have taken him. Omar Norman Lott, I am not sure there was a team that was going to take him for quite a while. Just because the size, his usage, he's just so limited. He can work in that Kansas City defensive front, but he's probably a pass rush specialist only. And if he's on the field, run at him.
Yeah.
Because he struggles to sustain blocks and keep blocks on him. And if you get blocks on him, he struggles to disengage. He struggles to hold up at the point of attack. Everything that you need as a run defender, he struggles with. To me, this is still the best class in the AFC West. I just think it's massively overhyped. Josh Simmons is a great player. There's been some attitude stuff coming from it, and then coming back from the injury, that puts some uncertainty there. But I understand it. Kansas City Chiefs in the first round, they're going offensive line no matter what. Mm-hmm. It was never anybody else. It was offensive line, period. Otherwise, they would have traded out of the first round. But they wanted an offensive line. It's a good class. Don't get me wrong. It's just a little overhyped for me. And it's overhyped for just a handful of picks. And Brashard Smith is the biggest reason for it. Now, Lance, blind ranking, real quick. 1, 2, 3, 4. You have 3 and 4. 1 or 2. I assume we know where you're going with this one.
Yeah, to me, this is the best class, just based on my personal tastes for these players. Again, you and I completely disagree on Omar Norman Lott, and I understand where you're coming from, and I share a lot of those same concerns with the size, with the lack of experience, with the lack of run defense and stuff like that. I'm definitely 100% with you, but I see the upside. The guy has a pretty well-rounded pass rush repertoire with a very good forklift maneuver where he gets guys as a pass rusher moving forward, moving side to side. There's concerns there for 100%, but he uses his hands to disengage with offensive linemen and a fork move technique. He has a swim move. There's a spin move in there if you really want it. Like I think that there's, with the high end upside of a player like this, you can't go wrong taking him to add to an already stacked roster. If he needs a couple years to develop, sure, let him grow up, let him get a little bit better, let him utilize those raw pass rush tools that he obviously has to really round out that pass rush. To me, though, the work that they did on day 3 with Jalen Royals, with Jeffrey Bossa, with Brashard Smith, I know that obviously he's with Brashard Smith receiving back. The guy's going to work out of the backfield as a receiver. You can line him up out wide if you want to. He's a good route runner. You're not going to focus him as a pure 3-down running back, but as the ideal complement to Isaiah Pacheco. That to me speaks volumes to what the Chiefs did with this class. Jeffrey Bossa, do they still have Willie Gay? I don't think they have Willie Gay, but they still have Nick Bolton, a guy who does work well driving vertically against the run, a guy who does work well moving sideline to sideline in coverage. Like, he's a high quality linebacker. They paid him $15 million a year this last offseason. So you get a coverage linebacker to work with him. It makes a lot of sense. And again, Jalen Royals, dude, that's the steal of this draft class. It's the best class. I understand what you're saying. It's overhyped. I just like some of these players a little bit more than you did, and that's fine. I mean, that's part of evaluating the NFL draft and understanding, people are going to have their different tastes. They're going to have different strokes for different folks. It is what it is. Ashton Gelati, man, this dude burns hot. And alongside George Karlaftis on the opposite side of him, if he can take that next step forward as a run defender and really hone in the hot motor that he runs with, I love him in a Steve Spagnuolo defensive line, man. Like, they're going to be super aggressive with a player like this. Like, he's got good size and length. It works so well with what they already have.
Now, Omar Norman Lott, 23 years old, and 6'1", 303 pounds. And then he has good length in his arms, but he doesn't have that there. Doesn't have that natural height for it. But he's stuck behind Mike Pennell and Jerry Tillery and Chris Jones.
Oh, I forgot they got Jerry Tillery. That's a good call. That's a good shout out.
So it's early for me. Like, I'd get the upside with Omar Norman Lott. Doesn't mean it's not early. Then you get Jeffrey Bossa. Well, you have Drew Tranquill, you have Leo Chenal, you have Cam Jones, and you have Jack Cochran. Jeffrey Boss is linebacker 6 for them coming into the season. So I'm not going to get too overhyped over that number, that 6 linebacker, who, yeah, he can grow up and develop there, but you have your cover linebacker in Drew Tranquill and Cam Jones. And then with Brashard Smith, yeah, you need that receiving back out. You need that receiving back, but when you have somebody such an obvious tell, it really does hurt that ability to really be that ideal back complement to Pacheco. because you want somebody who can at least be more of a threat as a runner than Brashard Smith is. Sure, you can line him up out wide and you can use him in certain situations with Pacheco and Smith in the backfield, but then you're taking somebody else off. So again, overhyped. To me, this is still the best class in the AFC West. It was the fourth best class overall in terms of reaching against the consensus board. So it is a good class. Don't get me wrong. Just with the way the roster is built and what they needed, and obviously you don't draft for need, you let the board fall to you as they did, and you take the best guys on there. Can't fault them too much for that. But there's just some questionable moves that they made. And then moving on to the last one here, we have the Denver Broncos. Lance, before we get into it, gets a consensus board. Where do you think the Denver Broncos came in?
Probably somewhere middle of the road. I think that with the Pat Bryant pick, the RJ Harvey pick, that really hurts him a lot. The Quandarius Robinson pick hurts him a lot. I think taking a punter in the 6th round hurts him a lot. And Caleb Lohner being a guy that is, I believe, according to Dane Brugler, like his 57th total, 57th tight end in this class. You're going to get a lot of reaches on the back end of this class, and it's going to hurt a lot. The Jahdae Barron pick is going to help you, but in terms of just what you did on day 3 is really going to hurt this class overall.
So on that, earlier picks aren't that big of a help, but they can be a big hurt depending on how badly you reach. But when you're picking 20 overall, the most you can get from that benefit of a steal is 19, right? Because you can get the first overall player at 20. Well, that's only a positive value of 19. So the only player that wasn't considered a reach against the consensus board was Jahdae Barron. Everybody else was a reach. Savion Jones was a reach of 25, and RJ Harvey of 48, only ones under 50. They came in against the consensus board 30th. Against my board, they came in 31st. The team that was in 32nd was the New England Patriots, and that was the one for both. The New England Patriots taking 2 special teamers is what dropped them down so low. And taking special teams specialists always hurt, because against the consensus board, against my board where they're not even ranked, against the consensus board, they're hardly ever in the top 300. Hardly ever. Top 400 even. They're very low. So going into this Broncos draft class, obviously we have Jahdae Barron, RJ Harvey, Pat Bryant, Savion Jones, Q Robertson, Jeremy Crawshaw, and Caleb Lohner. To me, one of the best picks is RJ Harvey. He brings that specific explosive ability that the Broncos desperately need from their offense. You have Jahdae Barron, who brings that versatility to the Broncos secondary. Savion Jones, who brings that versatility to the Broncos front. And then you have Pat Bryant. Now, I did an article on Pat Bryant about his 40 time, because that's where a big concern is. The big concern is he ran a 4.61 40. First of all, you can see he's faster than that on tape. But I looked at the last 10 years. There have been 4 wide receivers drafted in the top 3 rounds, or the first 3 rounds, who ran a 4.6 or slower. It's not a great outcome for them. There has been only one that is undoubtedly a hit, and that is Cooper Kupp. I went and read a lot of the scouting reports of Cooper Kupp and compared them to Pat Bryant. There's a lot of similar positives and a lot of similar negatives, which was surprising to me. Of those other 3 receivers who ran a 4.6 or slower that went in the first 3 rounds, one of them the jury is still out on. He was a 33rd overall pick in the 2024 NFL draft to the Buffalo Bills, Keon Coleman, who's projected to be their top receiver this year. We'll see how that works out. The other 2 receivers were Devin Funches and David Bell. One of them still in the NFL, I think, in David Bell, and the other ones have been in the NFL for a few years. So, Lance, passing this off to you real quick. Broncos draft class, quick summary. We've already talked about it a lot, so just quick, because I want to get into the other aspect of this conversation.
So again, this is the second best draft class in the AFC West for me. And again, like it looks bad for the reach numbers according to the consensus class. Obviously, Caleb Lohner, Jeremy Crawshaw, those guys are really hampering what this class is overall. Q Robinson, I think with the upside as a pass rusher here, the upside as a run defender, the upside as a special teams player, it helps a lot for this class. It helps a lot for what this team needs. And Eric, you have an article up at milehighhuddle.com. Who are the 6 biggest winners out of this draft class? You have Vance Joseph, and also
don't give it away. That was the next part of this conversation.
Dang it. Sorry. That to me is a big thing here, though. But again, guys, when you think about it, yeah, Pat Bryant may not be the most athletic guy, but the guy knows how to get off the line of scrimmage. He knows how to get himself open. He knows how to work in space. He has a great catch radius. I mean, we talked about it on the live draft stream. The guy had 54 catches this last season, 1 drop on 70 targets. And of those 54 catches that he had, 52 of them went for a first down or a touchdown. This guy's productive. He knows how to move the chains. He's a damn good blocker. You got RJ Harvey, 55 runs of 10 plus yards or more, the second most of any running back in this class this year, not named Ashton Jeanty. Literally, he's number 2 in the entire class. You went out, and everybody wants to see, like, we needed a running back, a guy that could create some explosiveness, a guy that could work on all 3 downs. RJ Harvey is that guy. You needed a reliable pass catching option for Bo Nix to help this passing offense move forward. Pat Bryant is that guy. He's about his most, like, 70% contested catch rate. It's the second highest of any wide receiver in the class. That's over Tedero McMillan. I myself wanted Tedero McMillan at 20 overall for this team. Pat Bryant's that guy. He may not be the greatest athlete ever, but he is that guy. You went out and you addressed every single need. You needed a depth edge rusher. You got it in Q Robinson. You needed a punter. You got that in Jeremy Crawshaw. You needed a depth tight end, a guy that can grow and learn and play within the system. You got that with Caleb Lohner. Everything that Broncos fans wanted, you got. It just didn't happen to be the names that you wanted. So to me, yeah, that's where it drops down for me in my grade. A little bit of reach in there with Pat Bryant, a little bit of reach in there with RJ Harvey, that for sure. I get it. But everything that you wanted, you got. Everything the Broncos wanted. They identified the guys with quality leadership, quality character, quality scheme fits, and they all fit exactly what this Broncos team needed and wanted. Like, I get why people are pissed off and upset, but when you take a step back, look at it through the 5280 view, take a mile-high look at this thing, this class really isn't that bad.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very, calculated class. They went and got, their starting punter. They went and got a starting special teamer. They went and got their top running back. They went and got a wide receiver 2, 3, 4, somewhere in there. That's where Pat Bryant will be. And they got themselves a starter in the secondary. And you can't ask for a whole lot more than that, really. I mean, the Broncos, they really went into this with a very specific look at who they wanted or what type of players they wanted. And that's what they targeted. Now, the second part of this conversation, we kind of skipped over the Chiefs and, how the Broncos did against them and, with the drafting and stuff like that. But that's because a lot of the guys that the Chiefs have are depth guys for next year, right? They're not a lot of them are going to be starters this year. Noel Williams might, but he's probably just a insurance policy for this year and starter next year. Josh Simmons might be the only one, and we already know the Broncos pass rush ability that they have up front. Now, the next part of this conversation is every year you can always look at the NFL draft afterwards, look at teams' rosters, and you can see some big winners and see some big losers. I have an article up that's about 6 big winners on the Broncos roster or under contract with the Broncos, I think is a better way of putting it. And I'm going to be getting an article on the 6 big losers. And when you go through and look at the Broncos draft class, to me, it's pretty obvious who the winners are, right? They didn't draft a center, Luke Wattenberg. There you go. Your job's safe.
Yep.
They didn't draft a power back. There you go, Audric Estimate. Your job's safe. They didn't really draft a dual threat tight end. There you go, Adam Trotman. Your job's safe.
Yep.
What they did was they added multiple weapons and versatile players for Vance Joseph to play with and use different ways. And then you also had Darren Rizzi get his guy at punter. Darren Rizzi absolutely loved Crawshaw. Spent a lot of time with him after the Florida Pro Day. Met with him did his Zoom meeting with him multiple times, and got him a key special teamer in Q Robinson, who also helps Vance Joseph because it's an upgrade, in my opinion, over what Drew Sanders is bringing with currently as that A-gap mug blitzer who can rush off the edge as well. until Drew Sanders shows that he can do more in coverage, more of a traditional linebacker. To me, that's all he is. And a special teams player, which he did well. Q Robinson is a potential upgrade over that.
Yeah.
And Colin Wood, these guys says we don't seem to engage much with the chat. We do when there's comments, but chat's been dead tonight, which we understand. It's a Friday night at 7 p.m. School's almost out. We understand here. Todd Ossendorf says we had a strong opportunity to make the running back room much stronger and only added one bona fide running back when it could have turned the whole room realistically. For sure. I definitely get it. But I tried telling you multiple times that Sean Payton had a little bit more belief in this running back room than we did. They do like Jaleel McLaughlin still. They like what he was able to show to close out the season. And they still are very intrigued by Audric Estime and what he can do and his ability to be with that going forward.
I think let me jump in here on the running back conversation really fast, because I think that a player that we need to keep our eyes on a little bit more is the player that had arguably the most success of any running back on the team until he got hurt. I mean, what Tyler Bidet was able to do against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers was eye-opening, and he showed the best vision of any running back on the roster this last season, not named Jaleel McLaughlin. It was quality and pass protection. And I mean, after he got that scary back injury and he was out for the rest of the season, they sat down Audric Estime to bring on Tyler Bidet. Yeah, he only got 2 carries against the Buffalo Bills, but that shows me something. It shows me the intrigue and the high interest in what this player potentially can be. And then they go and get a guy like RJ Harvey, who's a really good complement to that. He's a good complement to Audric Estime as well. I mean, you can show multiple different looks up front. You can do multiple different schemes with all 3 of these players. Like, I think that what you're looking at with this Broncos running back room, Todd, is it's like they trusted a lot of what they have in the evaluations of the guys that they already have on the roster. They needed to add another complement to those guys, and that's what RJ Harvey brings. They didn't need to rebuild the room in totality. It's a lot like the wide receiver room. There was a big conversation on Twitter with multiple different people. Yeah, they love Courtland Sutton, obviously. He's probably going to be here for the next couple of seasons. They love Devon Bailey. They think that he's going to have a big-time projected role in this offense as wide receiver too. Marvin Mims took a big step forward down the stretch last season with the explosive plays that he was able to create. Troy Franklin still saw a lot of run even with the inconsistencies that he had. They didn't need to go out and go add a bona fide wide receiver 1 because that's not what Sean Payton's offense calls for. You need to have these role-specific players, and Pat Bryant fits a specific role within the offense as a whole. That, to me, when you see with RJ Harvey, you see with Pat Bryant, they trust this room as it's already currently constructed. They didn't feel they needed to go out and completely overhaul the situation. They landed on the role players that they wanted, and it's going to work out perfectly for them in the long haul. Sean Payton has my full undying trust. The guy can crap gold for all I care. Like, that's how I think about him right now. Like, seriously, like he showed enough coaching capability with a roster that was considered widely around the consensus NFL draft, NFL media members as like a bottom 5 roster. They won 10 games, went to a playoff game. Yeah. Sean Payton got that out of a bottom 5 roster, and now he just went and added pieces that fit what he wants them to do. I trust the guy. Like, let me sit back, let me watch it for a minute and see how it is. You can you can grade the draft as it stands and what it looks like. Sure, when I first saw it, B-. I wasn't necessarily a huge fan. The more I see it, the more I understand where these roles are coming from these players, the more I like it. And the more I have trust in Sean Payton, the more I like it even more. Like, I'm pretty high on this draft class in general, guys.
We have William Catalano coming in saying, I'm telling you right now, had Loveland fell more, we were going after him first. Possibly. I have my doubts about that. And Sean Payton and George Payton have even addressed that. They said that they looked into trading up for Ashton Genty, and that was about it. So I am not sold on some of the media stuff that they really were all in on Loveland as was made out to be. Todd coming as they were looking to trade back in the first round of draft Henderson, like I said they should. Basically, when they got on the clock at 20, it came down to trade down and gather more picks. I'm not sure it was for Henderson either, or taking Jahdae Barron because he fell unexpectedly to him. As Todd says, they did not trade back because Jahdae Barron fell to them unexpectedly. They had 2 teams. They actually had one team that had a firm offer made, and they passed upon those because Jahdae Barron, who was expected to go 13th overall, didn't go 13th overall and fell to them. Just goes to show how things like that can kind of change. And go off that, Judson says, I think they're going to take Ibuka. From what has been said, I think Peter Schrager has kind of heavily implied that the Broncos were a little upset that Emeka Egbuka went 19th overall, that they were really looking his way. That seems to align with stuff that I have heard and has been going around. And on that, I do gotta say one thing that has helped, come around on this draft class is hearing the Jaguars really wanted RJ Harvey at 70, right?
Yep.
Hearing that there were multiple teams, as I said on Saturday, and got a lot of flack for and got told I was lying about, saying that there were teams picking after 74 that were looking at Pat Bryant. I know there was about 3 or 4 teams within the next 10 to 15 picks that were basically going to take him had he been there. And then Caleb Lohner, we heard about the Colts, how they almost took him at wherever they took Hunter Wooler, but passed because Hunter Wooler was there, and they had an agreement made with him as an undrafted free agent. There was another team there that was looking at drafting him after the Broncos pick. When you get that kind of information, it does kind of help you come around as to with the picks that they made and why they did it. Sean Payton loves Caleb Lohner, wants to develop him. 57 snaps played in college football. Wants to see what he can do. That is worth that pick. Yep. Darren Rizzi, hearing how much Jeremy Cronshaw, hearing how much Darren Rizzi loves him, that helps you come around a little bit on that pick. Hearing other teams wanted these 2 guys that were reaches in the 2nd and 3rd round in RJ Harvey and Pat Bryant, that helps you come around on those picks as well.
Yeah. Well, it helps you come around, again, hearing the information coming out of Nick Saban, talking about Quandarius Robinson, saying he's the best special teams player that he's ever had the privilege of coaching. It's the best damn college football coach of all time, not named Paul Bryant, the Bear. Like, seriously, guys, Nick Saban, unimpeachable source here, saying, yeah, Quandarius Robinson, maybe he's speaking up for his guy, but at the same time, he was a quality special teams player. I sat down and watched a handful of his games. Was it Monday afternoon? And honestly, if he didn't get hurt, there's 2nd round upside to this player. Honestly, the twitch, the explosiveness, the burst, the athleticism, the long arm that he has, the bend that he has as a pass rusher. He can drop back in hook zone. He can play out in the flattened coverage. I actually freaking love Quandarius Robinson, but he dislocated his elbow in November. He got hurt. He at the time when he got hurt, he was leading the Alabama defense in sacks and tackles for loss. That's the Alabama freaking defense, guys. This player knows how to play football. I like it. I like it a lot. And again, I would have been fine with him at 64, the top 75 player. Like, maybe. I like it.
Yeah.
What's the problem with letting your team go out and follow their board, follow what they want, follow the needs that they need to address, and then go and hitting on every single one of them? Like, calm down here. It's all good. We can all disagree and all have fun with the conversation. This is my opinion. This is Erick's opinion. I'm not going to speak for him. B+. That's where I land on it. It's the 2nd best draft in the AFC West, and I'm here for it. I can't wait to see what this class looks like in 2.5 years. I really can. Because when you got Jahdae Barron as cover cornerback 2, opposite of Pat Surtain, Riley Moss, wherever he's going to be, you've got a high upside pass rusher and Quandarius Robinson, who's going to be like a Shaq Barrett type player for you. Like, it's there. It's there. This defense is going to be nasty. And you added pieces to the offense that complement everything that you already have. Like, come on, guys. Let's go.
Yeah, Todd said they heard from a credible source about a story about trading down for running back. And then he comes in and talks about tight end, improving tight end in this draft is another knock that he has. Yeah, I think if they traded down, I think that tight end was likely where they were going to go. Just from what's been going around in that conversation, there seemed to be a lot of love for Mason Taylor in the building, which is understandable when you can factor in George Payton's connection to him. George Payton was in Miami with Jason Taylor and Zach Thomas, Mason Taylor's father and uncle, and still remains close to those families as well. And then Todd talking about drafting 2 running backs. I don't think Denver was ever drafting 2 running backs in this class. No matter how it fell. I don't think they were. And another thing is that they made it very clear this year that their meetings weren't necessarily the guys they were interested in. They were using meetings to, as Nick and I talk about often, to just kind of clarify a few questions they had about players. And maybe 1 or 2 of them were guys that they still had some interest in, but a lot of them were guys that were moved down their board or removed off their board. And Paul coming in with the best comment of the night saying, Sean Payton will not call me for my opinion. Facts. Sean Payton's not calling me for my opinion. He's not calling Lance for his opinion. He's not calling Nick for his. But he's not calling anyone in chat for theirs. It's just the way it is. Sean Payton has forgotten more about football than we've ever learned. I'm thankful that I have a job that I can sit there and talk about football and, you know, put hours of work of what I do in my free time. Because even if I wasn't doing this, I'd still be going crazy on the draft class because I absolutely love to do it. And it's that I love being able to use that time and work that I put into it and to talk about the draft here. Well, Mike Morgan saying, great show tonight. Eric and Lance on the Death Valley Deep Divers. Go Bo Broncos. And before we get out of here, Lance, one last thing. Shrink Guy come and asks me, who is my favorite pick? Who is your favorite pick, Lance? And then I'll give mine.
So my favorite pick is probably RJ Harvey. And I know that he was lower on my board. I do believe that he was a reach. I thought he was probably a fourth round running back. But when you look at the fit schematically, and I brought it up, you know, the shotgun run game with his vision, the way that the Broncos offensive line likes to run duo and inside zone a lot. They like to mix up those looks. This kid plays with burst. He plays with vision, lateral agility, and explosiveness. And within this system, you get the ball in his hands early and you let him go to work. He's a decent receiver as well. The fact that he also, I believe, was like fifth most forced missed tackles in all of college football last season with players that had over 150 carries. Like this kid's awesome. I think when Broncos fans see him running behind this offensive line, number one run blocking offensive line per ESPN's run block win rate, by the way, when you see him run behind this offensive line and you see those explosive runs, Broncos fans are going to fall in love with this kid, man. I fell in love with him early. And Eric, you and I talked in the group chat several months ago when I started scouting all these running backs. Like, dude, RJ Harvey's a player. Like, I like this kid a lot. And you and I disagreed on the pass game stuff, the pass protection specifically. But like this kid has it. He's gonna be a dude, and I like him for the Broncos. He fits exactly what they need. They took him probably 2 rounds fuller higher than where I expected him to go. But when you talk about the fit, when you talk about the fact that this kid has improved exponentially from the time that he was a senior in high school playing quarterback in a Wildcat offense. He had 1,500 yards in back-to-back seasons and 22 touchdowns rushing last year. This kid knows how to put the ball in the end zone. He's explosive, and you guys are going to fall in love with him because he loves football, and he's going to continue to get better.
My favorite pick was the punter.
No, it wasn't. Don't you? Oh, I almost dropped the big one. Don't you freaking lie to us, man. You absolutely hated the fact that they drafted a punter in the 6th round.
I have made it very clear that part of my thing about, never drafting a punter, while I do believe that you don't, if you're going to draft a specialist, draft the best one, and then never did, I have made it that I definitely made it clear that I definitely was playing up how much I hated the pick. I didn't hate it as much as I acted like I did.
Okay.
They drafted the best punter. They drafted a guy who is, he has the traits of every single aspect that you want from a punting. The issue is that he just isn't a master at any of them. It's just a consistency issue. I do actually like the pick, in all honesty. I just still have that thing. It's just hard for me to sit there and be okay with ever drafting a specialist. Mm-hmm. But again, if you do, draft the best one. Seriousness, my favorite pick is Jahdae Barron. It is one guy that Nick and I, we've talked about him a lot privately. I mean, we had a full-blown 2-3 hour conversation back and forth texting about Jahdae Barron and how much we liked his tape and everything like that. Mm-hmm. We just weren't ever able to talk about it a lot on the shows because running back was all the focus, or defensive line. But Jahdae Barron is definitely my favorite one. And then even though he is the biggest reach for me, and I'm still not fully on board with taking him in the 3rd round, I do really like Pat Bryant, the player.
Yeah. I want to grab this comment really fast because Paul jumps in here and says there's nothing wrong with adding high character guys. And when you look at it, so Judson Kate comes in and says Jahdae is great. The first 3 picks were team captains. Jeremy Crawshaw was the team captain too. Yeah, he's a punter. He's a special teams captain. He's going to get that nod. But when you look at the character of these guys, Jahdae Barron loves football. He's a high character guy. In fact, I believe he called, they had him put on speakerphone so he could thank everybody in the scouting process to make him the 20th overall selection. RJ Harvey, high character football guy, loves the game. Pat Bryant loves the game, loves the nitty gritty dirtbag details. Like he's if you don't block, you don't get the rock. Like that's literally what he said in an interview on KOA. Like these guys, Q Robinson, he loves the game of football. He loves playing the game at any position. Doesn't matter what you ask him to do. He's going to go out there and try to do it at the highest level. Jeremy Crawshaw, again, Caleb Lohner doesn't necessarily fit that bill, but we'll see how that works out. It's a 7th round dart throw on a tight end prospect with a high freakish level of athleticism, especially considering the guy's 6'7", 265 pounds. So throw that one out there. Doesn't matter.
Yeah,
Sean Payton wants to fill his roster with players that love football, and he just did it.
And Todd saying if they have high character and lack athleticism, Pat Bryant doesn't lack athleticism. He still posted a good relative athletic score. He barely missed out on being a great relative athletic score, which factors in size. I think the fact of the 4.6 140 doesn't necessarily mean he isn't athletic. And on that note, he actually has a really fast 100-meter that translates to about a 4.52, I think, 40 time. To keep that in mind as well.
Yep.
So we got to get out of here. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you guys, everyone, for tuning in and being part of the conversation here. I am having issues with the chat, but that is all good. And and you're right. You didn't say Bryant. To be fair, Todd, you didn't specify Pat Bryant, but I know how you've been. I know there was some meaning of Pat Bryant right there. No, you can't fool me. No, but in general too, it's relative athletic score is a good resource to kind of show the athleticism that players have. But a lot of good players have been high character and good athletes. Very few have been high character and bad athletes.
Yep.
Anyways, guys, thank you guys for tuning in. As always, make sure you guys subscribe, like, and share. Those are the 3 things that only cost a matter of time and no money that can help us out in so many different ways, especially with the algorithms here on YouTube and on Facebook, which we are always dealing with and are always a pain. Make sure you go to Spotify, Apple Podcasts, leave a 5-star review for a chance to win some gear, not swag. I hate to say swag every single month. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Mile High Huddle with the underscore between Mile and High and Huddle. You can go check out if you're able to do so financially. MHHmerch.com to get your gear on, get some merchandise, or get your swag on. As Chad likes to say, I absolutely hate saying swag. You can follow us on Facebook, facebook.com/Mile High Huddle Pod/Mile High Huddle, or another one that I can't remember off the top of my head now. You can follow us on Twitter or X, whichever one you prefer to call it, at Mile High Huddle, at DVDD_pod. As well, and at MHH Pod. Make sure you guys check out milehighhuddle.com for all of our written content. That's where you can get access, that's where you guys can get access to all of our written content, including my 6 winners, my 6 losers that are coming out, and all other kinds of stuff. And you guys can also follow us on Twitter at Erick Trickel for myself and at Lance S_MHH for my co-host here, Lance Sanderson. Thank you guys for joining us. I hope you guys have a wonderful night. I hope you guys stay safe. Don't drink and drive. As always, choose kindness and compassion. And before we get out of here, Lance, any quick words, because I'm getting yelled at to get off the pod?
No, we're good, guys. Just again, calm down a little bit. Let this process play out a little bit more. Study some tape. Have some fun with these players. You're gonna love them. I guarantee it. But as always, guys, stay safe and take care. And as always, go Broncos. We'll see you guys same time, same place next week.
Yeah, I got to go get ready to go see a movie. I'm going to go see Thunderbolts. But anyways, make sure you guys enjoy your Friday night. Have a wonderful Friday night. Have a wonderful weekend. Stay safe. Don't drink and drive. As always, to steal from Nick, choose kindness, choose compassion. Quentin Carson coming in with some stars on Facebook. Thank you, Quentin, for that. We want to make sure we get your call out. Enjoy your weekend. And as always, choose kindness and compassion. Stay safe and don't drink and drive. And as always, go Broncos. We'll see you next week.